session, I guess. This was not my greatest reading year. I think my average was about 3.76 stars, which I don't even know how that's a thing. But I did not have a great reading year. But I did want to shine light on the books that I rated pretty high this year and gave 5 stars and high 4 stars. So let's get started. I only have 3 5-star books this year, which makes me sad because I usually feel like I have so many that I'm gushing about. I just wasn't clicking with a lot of characters this year that I thought I would, but for 5-star reads, I just finished A Quarter of Silver Flames at the beginning of the year, and I loved Cassian and Nesta. I am a Nesta redemption girly. I know she was really, I didn't think that I would actually like her by the end of this book. I despised her in the other books, so for Sarah J Maas to be able to turn her around for me and make her one of my favorite characters is very shocking. I felt like she was misunderstood, and once you kind of got into her head and like understood where she was coming from and like how she felt from her perspective, it helped you to see things differently. And I just loved this book, and I loved them and their chemistry. Their banter was fun. That was my first 5-star read of the year, I think. The next 5-star read I had was One Star Romance by Laura Hankin. I really enjoyed this book. I finished this book and just had this overwhelming feeling of just like happiness, and I think that's a big part of why I gave it 5 stars. Was I just like loved the people in this book. I know there's a lot of controversy about how the girl and the guy are kind of annoying and they don't feel like how can they fall in love and blah blah blah, but I feel like as I've gotten older, this is a believable love story to me where you kind of wrong place, wrong time, and you come back together at the right one, and I really enjoyed this story. The last one is The Finisher by the Runics, and it is the 4th book in the Dark Verse series, and I've talked about the series enough. I don't think you want to hear any more about it, but I loved that series. It is a 5-star series for me, but this was the only 5-star book out of that series. Next, I don't want to call them honorable mentions, but these are really highly rated 4 stars. So all of these are my 4.5 reads, and let's get through them. So I'm not going in any order of how I read them, so I'm just picking them up as out of the pile. First was Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. I really enjoyed this story. I didn't think I would, but I did. It's about a woman, and she is newly divorced and just trying to navigate life with her 2 kids and her divorce and trying to find love again. And I thought it was so good, and it was sweet, and the relationship genuinely felt like it built up organically. Anything wasn't forced. It was real life. It felt real. These people felt real. I felt like I could be their friend and go get coffee with them. And whenever a book does that for me, it's automatically going to get a 4. I didn't get a 5 only because sometimes I felt like she could be a little like she was pushed over a little bit, and I also didn't get that just all over like, oh my god feeling, and I sometimes don't think about it. Like when I think about all the books that I read and all the good books I read, when I saw this on the list, I was like, oh my god, yeah, I did love that book, but it's not something that just immediately comes to the forefront of my mind. Next was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I surprisingly loved this book, and I'm so excited to keep going with the series this year. This follows Pip. Her town is super famous for this murder, and she does not think the person that was accused is the person that did it, so she is trying to solve it. It was really good. I actually was surprised by the ending. I guess one of the surprises, but the other one caught me off guard actually, and I really enjoyed this book. I loved that the chapters were short. I flew through it. I felt like I didn't want it to end, and I read it in one day, which if I do that with a book, it's amazing. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars was some of the characters were actually unbelievable at times, and then other times I just thought like they were annoying, and I know that was the point, to make you not like them, but sometimes I felt like it was just overdone. Next up is Wild Love and Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. I loved these books so much. I give them both 4.5. now that I'm thinking about it, I can honestly see myself bumping Wild Eyes up to 5, but like, I gotta think on that. I loved these two books. I loved the characters. I love just what she creates in her writing. Elsie Silver is so good at instantly getting you attached to people, making them feel real, making you connect with them. And all of her books that I've read, I always connect with them. I don't think I've given any book I've read by her less than 4 stars, because I just always think about them. I always think about the characters, the people, how I wonder what they're doing, and they're not even real. I loved this. This one follows Ford Grant, and then he starts a record company, and he needs an assistant, and it happens to be his best friend's sister, and they always have liked each other, and then sparks fly from there. And I just loved it. I loved it. And it's just, she makes them so beautifully messy, if that's a good way to describe it, where they don't feel perfect and poised, and she just is so good. Like, she just has the recipe down. And this one follows Wes and Skylar. Skylar comes into town to record at the recording studio, and Wes is the main girls from the first book's brother, and she stays on his land, and he is a single dad of 2, and it's just so sweet. I loved this book so much. I think the only reason I honestly didn't give this 5 stars was sometimes Skylar got a little irritating to me, but the more that I think about it, the more that it doesn't even bother me anymore, and like, I'm probably gonna bump this up to a 5. I loved this book. It was so good. The next one is Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. I loved this book. I love the story. It follows Raphael and Ellie, and she's the nanny of him, and they go away on a trip with the son, and they fall in love from there. And his son has a deteriorating eye condition, so like, that was heartbreaking to read about too at times, where his scope of vision he would mislabel colors and things. And she also is an musician writer, and I'm just throwing things at you at this point, but I really love this story. The only thing that didn't give it 5 stars, it was a bit long. As you can see, it's a thicker book, and I felt like some of what was in there wasn't needed. We could have lived without some of it, and it would have still been an amazing book, and it would have been a 5 star if it was just a little bit shorter. Another surprising book for me was You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogel. I was surprised that this one was a 4.5. I didn't think much of it based off of what it was about. I was just looking for a quick read to get myself back into my reading grind, but this one follows Naomi and Nicholas. They kind of fell out of love, didn't like each other. They already had their wedding planned, and whoever kind of decides to break up first, they're gonna have to be the one to fit the bill. So they're trying to drive each other crazy enough to break up, but within trying to drive each other crazy, they find the reasons why they fell in love in the first place. I ate this book up. I don't know what it was, but I just was flying through it. The chapters are short, the people are funny, I love the side characters, the humor in it was great. I think the only reason I didn't give it a 5 stars, I believe, was the ending. I didn't necessarily like all the way, or something in those lines. Didn't give it a 5, but I really love this book. It was really just fun and fast, and if you need a quick book to get you out of a slump, I definitely would recommend this one. And then is Life's Too Short by Abby Jimenez, and I just read this one about a week ago, and she also is someone really good at getting you connected to characters and getting this feeling for them where your heart is just like with them, where you're rooting for them, you want everything to work. This one is about Vanessa. She is a YouTuber who is a travel vlogger, and her sister just shows up one day and says, I don't want this baby here. And her neighbor Adrian comes over and helps her one night when she can't get the baby to go to sleep, and they are tenants in the same apartment, and they live across the way, and it's just little by little they build this relationship. But she's very apprehensive about building a relationship because ALS runs in her family, and she has a 50-50 chance of getting it, so she doesn't want to fall in love with someone who has a chance of getting hurt by her passing. So it just kind of follows the dynamics of that. It is such a sweet book. I loved the characters. I loved Adrian. He was probably up there for one of the top book boyfriends of the year. Just his caring spirit, and everything. The only reason I didn't get 5 stars, I felt third act conflict agitated me a bit, and then I also feel like sometimes the way she would handle things was immature for someone put in the circumstances that she was. Next is Hating the Boss by Kristen Granada. Again, she is so underhyped, but I really enjoyed her book. It was short. It was a 220-page book. So it follows our main character, our main girl, and she has a one-night stand with someone, and then she walks in on her first day of her job and realizes that he's going to be her boss. And he thinks that she stole something from him the night that they were together. So he also is not her biggest fan. And it follows kind of this battle between them of what really happened. And I loved this book. I loved the banter. The chemistry was really fire, for lack of better words. I really loved everything about this book. I had a fun time reading it, and it's quick. It was fast, and it had me giggling and like clutching my pearls at times. And yeah, I would definitely recommend her books. If you're looking for a quick, fun, like steamy romance, all of the ones I read by her are really good. Next is Play Along by Liz Tomforty. I loved this book. I love Isaiah. I love Isaiah so much. And this book is part of the Windy City series by Liz Tomforty, and this one follows Kennedy and Isaiah. Kennedy is going through a breakup, and then they get drunk together in Las Vegas and wind up married. She is his personal trainer on the baseball team, so she is shooting for a promotion, and them getting divorced right away is just not a good look, so they decide for the season to stay married. And Isaiah's always had a thing for her, and it just kind of follows that journey. I love Isaiah, you guys. I love him so much. Only reason this book didn't get that 0.5 was Kennedy sometimes was like a little bit annoying to me and just irked me, and then the third act conflict wasn't necessarily like the worst, but sometimes they're just done and I'm like, you didn't need it. Like, it could have just drawn out the angst a little longer instead of just adding a third act conflict to add one, because it wasn't really a third act conflict. It was just something added to add a divide, and it wasn't necessary. I loved this book, and he is probably my top favorite guy. I love a funny guy. Besides Ryan Shea, I think he is my top character of the series. Last but not least was The Reaper. Loved this one. This one follows Tristan and Morena. It's the second book in the Darkverse series. It keeps following along their journey and figuring out what is going on in their world, and I loved this book. The only reason it didn't get 5 stars is they had 2 books to build up Tristan falling in love with her, and he still wasn't saying the things, and it just wasn't, he wasn't head over heels for her. And I just felt like you want that from your main guy at some point. You want the guy that was never supposed to be in love to be in love. So when he still didn't give me like that gratification of it, I just didn't. I don't know. I just couldn't give it a 5 stars because that's all I wanted. Like, if he would have just been like, I love you, it would have been 5 stars. But he was still holding back after everything they've been through and everything that's happening, and still saying like he would do anything for her and die for her. But like, you can't give her those 3 words. Just, it wasn't believable for me. So I couldn't give it the stars it deserved. I couldn't. But I love that series. If there's one series I could recommend, obviously for the year, it would be that one. It was really good. It was dark, but it wasn't to the point where it made me uncomfortable like some dark books get. So take that with a grain of salt. So those were all the books I rated super high this year that I loved, that were 5-star or almost 5 stars. I hope you guys got some recommendations. Let me know what your guys' top reads of the year was. I'm so curious. You know, I'm always looking to add something to my TBR cart. So I will see you guys in the next video, and I will see you later. Bye!